But yeah, so this here is uh, just kind of an account of my recent journey with ayahuasca. I think it was the fourth time I've had it. I mean, I've been there twice, but I had it two or three times the last time, and then I had it twice this time. So probably the fourth time drinking ayahuasca, the boosters and everything, and the original. Then I also had 9 grams of magic mushrooms. About an hour after the ayahuasca started wearing off, it was a hell of a Saturday. And then the magic mushrooms, I think, were a combination of tidal waves, golden teachers, and Ecuador mushrooms. But yeah, yeah, asked her to give me a good cocktail, and she did. So a lot of people you go into it with an intention, which for me, I said intention, and then it's like it's good to have that to start, but for me, it never ends up going in the direction I thought it would go. But it's good to have some sort of start. Um, my intention was really just sort of please give me certainty of direction for my life. Just kind of like overall, I don't know. I do a lot of stuff, but it feels like lately it's been like I used to have a certainty of direction that I don't have anymore. Not that you have to have that or anything, but it was kind of nice when I had that sense of it. Coming into it, I just kept saying, after drinking the ayahuasca, before it was kicking in, I just reminded myself, I'm open. I'm open to everything, and I'm attached to nothing. And the answer, one of the answers I heard after drinking ayahuasca was help people return. In other words, like escape the world system and return to what we all really are. And the only way we really find that is with psychedelics. I don't know of any true, legit spiritual experience anyone's ever had that's not been psychedelic, or it's just been a manufactured experience that they think is, and that's just my opinion. They think it's a spiritual experience because they've never known a real one, in my opinion. I'm pretty hard pressed to say that anyone who's done psychedelics can say that anything before that was a true spiritual experience. That's just my opinion, though. I had the thought that, I think it's like the Bible says something like, if you want to get into heaven, you have to become like a child or something like that. Um, that came to mind. And I thought to myself, I think that means being open to everything because a child is open to everything. They're not closed off to like everything's a possibility. And you're open to things and you're not closed off to a lot of things and you just don't know what you don't know. And so I these words came to me too because I was asked to experience love and peace and also insight. And these words came to me as ayahuasca was kicking in. It was show me love, show me heaven, give me certainty of direction. I don't know why it just kind of had a ring to it and it floated through my mind. So um, next thing I wrote is, and this is while the ayahuasca is now kicking in. Um, I've been to Eden and it's within us. Like the Garden of Eden, people talk about, they think it was in Iraq or somewhere along the Euphrates River or something like that. And on the ayahuasca, it was almost like it was kind of giggling at the how frivolous of that is. It's like it that place. It's not an earthly place. It's a place within us that we can access if we have the right keys to it. Like ayahuasca or the other plant medicines that quote God has literally put in the earth. We didn't put it there. Everything the plant medicines are here just like we are. So we were all put here together with it and together. And it was just I remember last time with ayahuasca when it really kicked in and I was outside and it started downpouring rain on me in Florida, and that whole God, I was like in heaven for like 2 hours. And so it was that same kind of thing. It was like this is the Garden of Eden. Like this is where it's at. Like it's like a secret we forgot. It's like this is where it is. This is where it's at. Like
Is that maybe what Jesus meant when he said the kingdom of heaven is
the
within you?
kingdom of heaven is within. I've heard that a lot, and I think, I mean, to me, I would interpret that to mean, if Jesus said the kingdom of God is within, your kingdom of heaven is within. I mean, I think you may have had some of this stuff too, and then, or something, either mushrooms or some other psychedelic, and and then have these experiences, because so much of the Bible that I see now, I read those things, and it's like, oh, those guys were totally tripping. Like they're so these stories, so many of them in the Bible are so synonymous to a psychedelic experience. It's laughable to try to even separate it. It's like that's totally a trip. That's totally a journey that they're on. Oh, the burning bush, like it was burning and it wasn't consumed. Like, yeah, I watched things melt that never melted. They were melting, they just never melted down and went away. And just, I mean, it's the same kind of stuff. But yeah, I noticed this is, it says I like to be noticed for some reason. That was kind of a deeper insight. Like, oh, I like it when people notice me. And that was kind of interesting.
How does it make you feel that came out? How does it make you feel about yourself? Like
It's good. How that saying makes me feel, like saying that out loud, how that makes me feel. I I think it's something I didn't realize about myself, but if I look at my life, I can sort of see how that can be true. Not in any, I don't think it's in any sort of vain or vanity. Like, hey, look at me. That's not the origin, the intent. I think it's more like I think I felt maybe rejected or ignored early on in life, and so like I didn't feel maybe seen, or not seen, but just more maybe rejected and stuff. Maybe when I was younger, I think that might have something to do with it. But I noticed that, I like to be noticed for some reason. It feels good to be noticed. What?
well, you're so small. I'm wondering how did I not make how did being around me make you feel that way?
Well, no, well, yeah. You're my mom, and you're asking how did being around you make me feel that way? I didn't feel it from you. I think it was more from like people at school,
Oh,
because I had like the twitches and stuff when I was younger
yeah.
and stuff like that, the little things, and so I think it was more of like just being maybe not in the in group, or kind of like shoved off or ignored, kind of. I think it was more like that. It didn't have anything to do with you. No, you were great, mom. But no, I think that's what had the root of that, though, has something to do with that, because it feels good that, like, oh, people notice you're here, not because, oh, you need to be noticed, or you've got to be noticed, you're so vain. It's like, no, it's just, as humans, being acknowledged is important. Not that we want it for any selfish reason. It's just a part of, I think, built-in need. I think anyone can understand that at a surface level.
And it makes more sense when you turn it into like rejection from school kids, things like that.
Yeah, like scenarios of where it may have come
That
from.
makes
Or maybe it's just fun to get noticed, and maybe it has nothing. Maybe it has no root there. I don't know. I just trying to make sense of it. Um, I started thinking about my son Blake, who's 15 and a half right now, and something it said to me was, he knows he's loved, but does he feel loved? He knows he's loved, but does he feel loved? Maybe like, because I mean, I'm a guy. He's a 15-year-old teenager, and you know, we have a great relationship, but sometimes all of us go back and forth on things, and sometimes I'm more harsh than I should be, maybe. But so I think it's like he knows he's loved, but does he feel loved? Like, do I do things every day that like kind of reinforce that? You know, I can say, "Hey, love you, buddy," but also like, what are things I do that he'll know? Oh, okay, Dad loves me, like, because that's what people do when they love you. Am I doing that consistent enough where it's not just, oh, I know I'm loved because I'm part of the family. It's like generic, well, for some people. But does he feel loved? And that was kind of I think kind of a wake up call for me, to just like make sure I'm being intentional about, making sure my kids feel loved by like actively doing things that prove that. Because I think we can all get busy with life and just kind of forget and get in our own heads and whatever we're focused on doing, and then that can go on. But Another thing I heard was you attract and receive what you are and what you give out. So you attract and receive what you are and what you give out. If you're a generally happy, loving, caring, kind person, you tend to get that in return. If you're more of a hard ass, or you're really direct and straightforward and how you communicate, which is a little more like me. I think I'm both of those, but I'm definitely more of a hard ass sometimes, especially if I'm talking with conviction about something. You kind of get that back. So it's almost like, not every time, but a lot of times, how people treat us as a mirror of what we're putting out. Not every time. Some people are just dicks. You can be the nicest person, or then like they're just a dick. So it's not a reflection of you. So that's not always true. But to me, that was a reminder. Uh, I've heard some people say that ayahuasca can be a really mean bitch of a plant medicine. Ayahuasca is often attributed, as being female in energy, and the ayahuasca had already kicked in, and it was, as usual, I'm having a beautiful experience. And I remembered somebody saying, "Oh yeah, she can be a real mean bitch," just kind of like casually, like, "Oh yeah, you got to look out for ayahuasca," And I asked ayahuasca, like, why do some people say you can be a really mean bitch? And immediately in my mind, and not audibly, but in my mind, I heard back, because they approach me like assholes. And I'm like, I was like, wow. It's like, you can approach me that way, but I'm going to give it back to you. Like, and that kind of goes back to, like, I think of the concept or the principle of, if, whatever it says, if you want to enter the kingdom of heaven, be like a child. Well, a child approaches things generally with love and wonder. A lot of times you're not trying to take this place over when you come in the house and conquer it. You're approaching, your parents lovingly, generally. You're approaching this with an open mind. Like I said, it kind of goes back to that. And I realized she's nice to me because I'm nice to her, and I approached her kindly. And it was kind of like, you can approach me with love, or I'll fuck you up. But it's actually you fucking yourself up. And if you think about it, if you're walking around pissed off every day with that mindset, that vigilant mindset, that just negative, I mean, that's all you see everything through, is that lens. And so it's like, oh, ayahuasca maybe is doing that back to you. But also it's like, maybe, and I don't know, maybe you are the ayahuasca and you're just bumping into reflections of yourself. and then you don't like it. Yeah. But I've had so many journeys now with different plant medicines where I've learned so often, like, that, like, the things that annoy me most about other people are things that I do. They're like, it's like me having to, like, put up with myself. It's like, I'm great when it's me, but I don't want to deal with somebody like me. like Mom, you and I are very much the same on high doses of mushrooms. Talk a lot, very active, very, like, if there's other people who just want to be alone and quiet, they don't need us around. I'm annoyed by you when I'm them. But the reason I'm annoyed is because, but I'm just like you when I'm on them on that higher dose. And so it's like, I like it when it's me, but having someone else there is like distracting to me if they're like me. So it's just kind of funny where, oh, the thing that annoys you from other people, sometimes it's the thing, it's exactly how you are. It's like, what's that saying about you, Brian? It's interesting. The next thing I wrote down was, God is a vein of loving energy flowing through everything. God is like a loving thread, like a needle and a thread. The thread that seems to be deeply hidden inside all of us and running through all of us and everything. Just a thread that just connects it all. And it's like I saw that thread, and it was like the thread was energized, and everything it went through had life, from the smallest particle of energy to this house, to each person, to every little molecule and energy atom that makes up every little thing, from the micro to the macro. from the quantum physical tiny level to the galaxy and universal level, to the planets and galaxies, and like everything has that thread going through it, and it is not just touching it, but it's going through it somewhere, and it's bringing it to life is what I kind of saw. Yeah, be loving energy and you will be God. And then I put you already are. Now, a lot of people have a problem when they hear something like that, and I always say they misinterpret. I think when they hear somebody say that, coming from the Christian background we do, those people see that as combative and in competition with their idea of God. It's not about taking God's place. I don't think there ever was anyone's place to take. At this point, my understanding is like we're all the one thing. It seems like it's not like, oh, I'm gonna take God's place and set up my own kingdom and take over. That duality, the us and them, us versus them. It's like none of this felt that way. It's like if you're loving energy, if you're loving, that's my understanding of what God is. And so when we're loving, we literally are Him or it or whatever you want to, like the ultimate thing, the one thing. It's like we're most like that when we're loving to people, genuinely loving. And so it's kind of like when we're like that, when we're loving, we sort of blend into that God mode, that God nature that is already a part of us, but it's like we blend back into it more completely when we're loving. I guess is the best way I could put it. Now this next page was this page of notes is interesting because the ayahuasca, I think my second cup of it by now, and it was getting pretty intense. And again, I'm having a great, amazing, out of this world experience. I put, true God seduces our souls from loving acceptance. So true God, like the true God source, seduces our souls from loving acceptance, from a place of loving acceptance. It's like when we were lovingly accepted, like it would be easy to be seduced, not just in a sexual way, but in any way, like endeared to somebody, seduced by somebody, if they're always approaching you from a place of loving acceptance. Like that's the kind of person, it's like even the hardest person doesn't want to reject. Like how do you hate somebody who always is loving you from a place of, treating you from a place of loving acceptance? And if you think about it, based on what I know or was ever taught about Jesus and the higher love and the power of God, it was always loving people, even to the extent he said, love your enemies. It's like there's something about this power of love that disengages and disarms certain things and makes things better if we will do it and stay doing it. And I think that has a lot to do with it. I wrote next, God is loving acceptance. So it's not just something that like God does. It's like what God is. Well, it's what we are if we choose to be. All you need to know. Well, I put this as what seemed like a quote from God. All you need to know is I am loving acceptance. Like, oh, what's God? If someone were to ask me what's God, at this point, I would my best understandings would just to be say God is loving acceptance. That's the highest place I know, and the easiest way I know how to describe my understanding. This next part, in all caps with an exclamation point, I wrote, I just had my soul fucked. Yeah. Which is a weird thing to say because I'm a guy. I'm not usually the one receiving naturally, or you could say. It's usually I'm the giver, not the receiver of the fuck. You could say, if that's not too visual. But, let's say as a very, well, just as the kind of man I am, it's like it's funny, just that came to me in that moment. It's like I was realizing, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, it's amazing like sex, but it's like for my soul. Like I just had my soul fucked.
I remember you
You remember I texted you a picture of this page. I put something deeply hidden it's already within us. That's what all of this is. Like it's already in us. It's not outside of us. Where people look up to the sky and go, "Oh, heaven's up there somewhere." I think it's inside of us. I think we're looking in the wrong direction. I put there is no division except what we create at our own expense. When I wrote that down, I remembered Terminator 2. No fate. There's no fate but what we make. Miles Dyson, she's gonna blow him away. Sarah Connor with that big old knife carved no fate into that wooden picnic table.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me that when I wrote this, because it kind of rhymed with it. There is no division except what we create, and it's like we create division, divide people, divide societies, divide classes, divide everything. But every time we do that, everything's one thing, but then we divide things, and it's at our own expense. Yeah, could you close that door? I'm kind of distracted by the animals. Yeah, I just see them going in and out, and it's fine. But I also put my comedy is an expressive cover-up. I like to joke about things a lot. I've put some comedy bits together. I haven't done yet, but being funny and sarcastic and humorous about things it's definitely fun. And I say right here I said my comedy is an expressive cover up. I don't think it's like I'm hiding something or I'm trying to belittle something or I'm trying to stay away and not address something. I don't mean it's a cover up in that way. I just think it's a creative way that I express maybe deeper things to the extent I'm able to at this point. I just think maybe, it's just a way to handle things. But it told me that. This here says, we're all just God expressing himself in many ways. Don't hate the other branches on the tree. We're all the one thing and part of it. So, I mean, the tree outside there has probably 100 branches on it. It's like, well, the branch right there on the right, why would it hate the branch on the left? And I remember seeing this before in a vision. I think it was last time I did ayahuasca. Or maybe it was a mushroom one. I don't remember. But I saw like my two arms fighting each other. And one of them won naturally and one of them lost. So it's like the other one's like, yeah, I won. But then the arm that lost is bleeding out. And the arm that won is connected to the main body, like the trunk of the tree, that is now bleeding out. So like the arm that won actually mortally wounded itself, its own self-inflicted mortal wound, by trying to fight and destroy the other arm or the other branch on the tree. If two branches are fighting and one wins, well, the tree is now damaged, and if it's bleeding out, or if the body's bleeding out because one arm lost and the other one won, well, the one that won it's only won for a little bit, because once it starts bleeding out, the arm that won is going to die because the body it's attached to is dying. And so
the division kills.
Yeah, it's the division of it, and they could live in harmony. They'd both do better together.
Yeah.
So yeah, just said we're all just God expressing himself in many ways. That was my understanding. Like you might be God's pinky fingernail on the left hand, and I might be, the big toe on the right foot. It's like, okay, well, you're not God, okay, but is our fingernail and is our toe us? Like your body, my body, okay, it's your toe, it's your fingernail. But is it you? It's a part of you, right? But is it you also? Is it also you? I think so. I think my finger is a part of me, but also it is me. It's part of the makeup of what I am. So that's more when I hear these things, or when I understand these things about us being God, it's, or the concept of that. It's not we're trying to take God's place. That's a duality. That's division. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I was understanding. I was just understanding that we're all part of one thing. That we know and address as the concept of God in our language and understanding. Why do I torture myself with these deep questions? And then negatively affect my family because my thoughts are troubled. I think a lot, so I think we torture ourselves with our thoughts. I know I do sometimes, whether it's negative thoughts or worried thoughts or just I think I know I have the capacity to way overthink. With only usually with deeper things like this though, because I'm very curious, and just sometimes you just have to get up, stop thinking about it, and go grab a cup of coffee or do something. But when we're loving acceptance to others, we are God. I think I kind of touched on that a little bit before. Just when we're loving acceptance to other people, I put we are God. I think that could also be said we're most like God. We are being God to other people. We've heard it said a lot of ways. I don't, at this point in life, I don't believe we were ever separate from God, whatever that means. I know what the Christian narrative says about that or what it means by that. And, it's built, it's constructed, that faith is constructed on that premise. So anytime you say something like that, they immediately want to fight you because they literally couldn't, their faith would be, pointless if that wasn't true. So they, even if it isn't, they have to defend it as true because you can't go around saying that.
Yeah, but the Bible says nothing can separate you from the love of God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except the sin that he created. Nothing. The Bible says nothing can separate you from the love of God. But then it's like, oh, but sin separates us. It's like you just said both of those things. There's no contradictions in Scripture. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, not when you don't want to see them. Yeah. But yeah, so we torture ourselves and each other with our thoughts. Our thoughts lead to our actions, behaviors, outcomes. Sometimes they're bad for us or bad for other people. And sometimes they're good and good for us and good for other people. God is just an energy that is forever creating because that's what it does. That was another one. We're all missing the point, just love. I know we obviously have to do things in the world. We can't just go around loving people and be loving in all you do. But we actually have to do stuff, obviously survive and whatever. But what came to me was we're all missing the point in this whole life thing. Like just love. Because we forget. It's like we get divorced or separated from our nature sometimes, which I don't believe we have a sin nature, original sin. I don't believe in that. That didn't even originate until far after Jesus was gone, at least couple hundred years. Like the concept of original sin didn't even appear until I think sometime in the either late 200s or late 300s AD. And then it wasn't until the 16th century that the Catholic Church made it part of the doctrine. So during Jesus' time, this original sin thing apparently it wasn't even a thought of in existence, like in his time, because as far back as we know, the thought of original sin wasn't even that you're born with a sin nature. That nobody thought to think that back when he was alive, apparently. So so I wonder about that too. Don't try to be right. There's no need to be. Just cultivate loving conversations. Like, don't try to be right. And that's what's really cool about these psychedelic plant medicines I've learned is that with what I learn and I share, a lot of people, they'll come against me asking, like, trying to be right because they're trying to fit my experience into their box of understanding. That often it doesn't work or it's bullshit completely. And so my whole thing is I'm not even trying to be right. Like I didn't build up a hill that I now have to defend. I don't know. This might be one hill and there might be 15 other hills that I'm going to discover. But I'm not trying to defend this one because I don't know enough to defend it. I'm completely open-minded to whatever I discover and what is. Well, people who are not open-minded, they don't like that. It's like, oh, this is all the truth is. This is all it is. This is exactly. There's nothing outside of it. It's almost like they built a hill. Now they're defending it, saying there's nothing outside of this. not realizing that the hill is surrounded by a canyon full of mountains, and they don't see the mountains in the distance. This hill's the only thing, we'll defend it. It's not the only thing. You're surrounded by higher things all around. You just don't want to see it, or you don't see it because you've been taught not to. Things like that. We're all just energy bumping into each other and rubbing off on each other. Yeah, good or bad, we're just bouncing off each other. I mean, my understanding is that everything is, as far as physics, like the study of matter and energy, everything is, from my understanding, made up of energy, vibrations, frequency, waves. Yeah, so it's like, it makes sense that, when I kind of heard that, hey, we're all just energy bumping into each other and rubbing off on each other, because we do bump into each other, sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a bad way. We do influence each other. If we walk in depressed, other people are prone to feel depressed. If we walk in happy and excited, it lifts other people's spirits sometimes. Or if someone's feeling down and we get them a gift, like, wow, their energy just lifted. Like, the energy of what they're made of just improved because we rubbed off on them. We were better energy, you could say. I know people say that sounds new age, talking about energy. This stuff's actually old. It's older than the faith most people profess to have. And so that was what I've got from the notes from the ayahuasca that day. And this is this was on July 20th of 2024. Now the second journey, so the ayahuasca, was starting to wear off, and we had about a 1 hour break, and then we're going into the next journey.
This is on Saturday?
Yeah. It was only a 1 day thing. It was morning and evening session. And so I decided not to have the ayahuasca the second time. I wanted a generous higher dose of a mushroom journey. So I didn't know initially how much, but I told her, don't give me too little. My biggest fear is I get too little and I don't break through and learn. I said, err on the side of giving me too much. Because I've never had a bad psychedelic experience. It's always been very healing and learning and beautiful. So she gave me 6 grams of mushrooms, and they were in capsule form. About 2 hours or more went by, and they can, in capsule form, they can delay. They can take that long sometimes. I think she gave me a combination of tidal waves, golden teachers, and Ecuador mushrooms, and so I knew it was going to take a little while, but they kick in when they want, and some of these are known they can take a couple hours, and so I was just kind of do, and I'm like looking around. There's a couple other people, like they're already on their way, with ayahuasca, and I'm like 2.5 hours. I'm like, come on. And so she said, do you want more? Do you want a little booster? I said, yeah, it'd be nice. Maybe if we could like mix, maybe just don't do it in capsule form, but mix some of the actual ground up mushroom maybe into some orange juice, because the fruit juice and the sugars helps kick you in the journey faster, and so how it metabolizes and everything in your body. So I didn't know how much she put, but she brought me a glass of orange juice, and it looked green, like a dull green, because of the mushroom powder in it, but it tasted exactly like orange juice. So the next day I found out she put 3 more grams of mushrooms in there, so I had a total of 9 grams. And I still had ayahuasca in my system, even though it was wearing off. It was, still in my system. So it was within a half hour, it probably kicked in after this, and it was like I didn't know when it was going to kick in, but when it hit, it fucking hit.
So you didn't have the awkward like sweaty, nausea, nervous feeling. You just jumped right through.
There's always a, like, for me, like an entry, like you're going through the ozone or the atmosphere. It wasn't that long. Once it started to kick in, I was like, oh, it's kicking in, and I was I had, I had this thought, like, oh shit, like did I take too much? Kind of like, and then I'm like, well, just chill out, lay here, just be live by the experience, don't control it. That's what you do. You don't try to control anything. Stay calm and just lay there. So I'm laying out in the yard in the grass with my pillow behind my head. So I'm out there. It's like nighttime now, and the lights are strong. These little Edison lights, and so it's a really good ambiance. The intercoastal waterway is right there, about 20, 50 feet away, and so this is starting to kick in. They have the music playing and all that, and the first thing I have written on this page in big giant letters with an asterisk and an exclamation point, it says, "I had a soulgasm." I don't know if that's a made up word, if I made it up, but it says, "I had a soulgasm."
Well, earlier you said your soul was fucked.
Yeah, so yeah, it's pretty nice. Now, I didn't take almost any notes on the mushrooms. Ayahuasca, now and then I would take notes, things that were coming to me. On the mushrooms, it was such a powerful experience. I didn't even think to write anything down. I was just being lived in the moment by this experience, and I wouldn't have wanted to even stop and write it down, because I think it would have taken me out of it a bit. But it was so powerful, I didn't even think to write things down. And so I remember yelling this out loud, like, in a really excited tone, because I'd waited for the mushrooms to kick in. But also, I felt like there was a part of me that's been waiting for me to wake up for a long time from a lot of the programming of life. And I yelled out loud, "Oh my God, you were worth the fucking wait.
Oh, wow. You
You were worth the fucking wait." My mind is just being blown right now. I'm like looking at the sky, or I don't know if my eyes are closed, open, combination, but I'm just saying, like, "Oh my God, you were worth the wait. You were worth the fucking wait." Now I'm talking to the mushrooms, like, finally kicked in, but there was a part of me that was going, "Dude, it's taken this long for you to get to this point, but you were worth the fucking wait." And I mean, I don't know, like, I don't really take encouragement well. It's like, hey, if I'm running a 5K or something, "Come on, Brian, you can do it." My whole thought's like, bitch, I know I can do it. I wouldn't be out here. It's like, and I'm not being mean, but yeah, and it's not an arrogant jerk either. It's like, I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't know that. So it's like, that's nice, thanks. It does nothing for me. I say that to say, for someone to tell me I'm worth the wait on something is naturally, I seem to have that same kind of feeling, like, "Oh, it's worth the wait. Oh, that's kind, thanks."
I thought you were saying it was worth the wait.
Here's my point.
Okay.
It wasn't the whole, "Oh, thanks, that's nice of you to say I was worth the wait." And it just kind of surface level, doesn't mean much to me. It was the opposite of that. It was more like, holy shit, I've been waiting my whole life to wake up to some of these things. Like, I've been asleep, but damn, it was worth the wait. But it was like talking to me, though. Like, it was me talking to me. Like, you were worth the fucking, all this time, all this shit you've been through. You're finally coming into this phase of life, and you've been waiting, and you didn't know it, but you've been waiting, and now you're coming into this. And it was like a God version of me looking back at me, I guess you could say, "Man, you were worth you were worth everything you went through. You were worth every year and minute that you had to wait. You were worth the fucking wait." Now I'm talking to the mushrooms, like, damn, you kicked in hard. Like, you were worth that 2 hour plus wait. But it was also, it had a flip side meaning of, to me, it's like, Brian, you were worth the fucking wait. It was worth everything to get here to this point now. And I was realizing that on like a higher existential spiritual level. And so the next thing, I was like standing up, walking around, Sometimes I was sitting in the grass. Sometimes I was laying in the grass. Sometimes, I was sitting down, kind of leaning on my arms. Other times I was just sitting there with my knees up in front of me, feet on the ground. But one thing that came to me was, I said, "Oh my God." And then I'm like, oh my me, or am I one with, and is he us? Whatever. But that happened a lot. But I don't know that like I'm quote God. I think maybe we all are, and that's blasphemous. If whatever, I don't care. I had this thought though, this realization. I remember saying it out loud. Now, after I said it, I opened my eyes. Like I looked. Oh shit! Did anyone hear me say that? Bobby and a couple others were sitting around with inside hearing. They weren't bothering me. They're just kind of whatever, being very quiet, not paying any attention. But I said out loud, "I'm Hitler and I'm the Jew." I'm Hitler and I'm the Jew. It was like I was realizing I'm both sides of my same coin. It's like, it's like I don't think there is an enemy outside of me per se. I think it is me. I think I was, I'm Hitler and I'm the Jew. I'm the oppressor and the murderer, and I'm the victim. I'm the devil and I'm the prey. I'm the predator and the prey. I'm the devil and the one the devil wants to destroy. It's like a coin with two-sided coin. I'm both sides of my same coin. There's this huge cosmic understanding of that making sense somehow. I wrote, everything you think you know is bullshit. That's me talking to me, but it's also based on what my level of understanding, as well as my increased level of understanding, my lack of understanding. That's my message to the world. People are certain I know that I know that I know that I know. If it comes to like this kind of stuff, you don't fucking know anything. Yeah. Especially if you've never had these kinds of experiences. And the more I've had these and understand these experiences, the less I realize I know. But a lot of people are taught to think that they're supposed to know and believe that they know. They're taught to think they know. They're taught to think they believe they know. But that's different than knowing. I'm the devil and I'm fucking beautiful. He's God and he's me. I'm both sides of the same coin. So I gotta describe this experience here. In my mind, I saw the devil. It was me, and he was fucking beautiful. Like, it was like I don't know how to describe it. I didn't see this exactly, but I understood that, like, in my mind, visually, this is what he looked like. It's like he was made of diamonds. And I mean, like, with like, if you were to say like his eyes were like fire, he was made of diamonds. He had like if it was like the best clothing that could ever be made. I mean, just adorned with like the most expensive ever. I mean, it was like the devil was like the pinnacle creation of creation, like the pinnacle of it, like the most beautiful of the most beautiful thing ever imagined or created in the mind. And it was what we call the devil, Satan. He was like it, but he was me. He was also me. And I was like, oh my God, I'm the devil. And I'm fucking beautiful. I'm majestic. I'm magnificent. Like, I stood up in the grass. I started walking around going, oh my God, I'm the devil and I'm fucking beautiful. I'm incredible. Like, I was never separate from God. I am God. It's the same coin. It's two sides of the same coin. That my understanding was God is the devil and the devil is God. It's two sides of the same one coin. And for some reason, I was that. My understanding was that was me. Or And maybe we all are as part of this energy, and where we come into it, that we're all that thing. I could not believe how incredibly magnificent and majestic and beautiful the devil was. And that it was me. And that my understanding was we were never separate from God. The devil was never separate. We were lied to. It's like I could see in my mind almost like God sitting off in the corner watching the devil dance or just walk around. And it's like I felt like I was seeing like God sitting there in the corner just smiling, so fulfilled and proud of just watching his amazing fucking creation just be what it is. And it wasn't doing anything evil. It wasn't doing anything bad. It wasn't running around with horns and a pitchfork and turning people against each other and creating chaos and killing each other. It was like he was proud to see his creation. Like he's sitting back going, I know I create everything because I am all this. But damn, I impressed myself with this one. Because I created that thing. And again, it was like the message I kept getting was we were never separate. Or like the devil was never evil. We have a narrative around the fact that what we call the devil is evil, and we attribute evil as a way of explaining, the bad things that happen in life. But it was like, I would say it's like God. It was almost like God watching his kid. But it wasn't his kid. It was him. It was just the other side of himself. Yeah. So it's not like a father to a son type of relationship. It was kind of that way, but it was also like you looking in the mirror at yourself. Yeah. It's like, yeah, me against me. Or me for me. Yeah. I mean, to say it's me against me is immediately inducing that dualism, that division of, okay, there's me, but then there's this other that's in competition. But yeah, I couldn't believe it. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm the fucking devil. And when I said that out loud, I was like, oh my God, wow. Like, I was so fascinated by it. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't like, oh my God, I'm the devil. I was like, oh my God, I'm the devil, because look at this fucking thing. And it's a representation of me. And it's majestic. It's fucking incredible. And it was never separate from God. My understanding in those moments was like, he wasn't evil. There was never a division. He never did any of that shit we were told. And the devil's just like, if God is the front side of your body, it's like, oh, the idea of the devil is like the backside of your body. It's like Alan Watts said one time. He's like, you don't see people with a front walking around without a back. It's like, it's a coin. It has two sides. It has to. Yeah. And my understanding was, I was just blown away. And it felt empowering to go, oh my God, I'm the devil and I'm fucking beautiful. I'm fucking amazing. I am fucking magnificent. Look at this fucking thing. And I'm just mind blown. It was one of the most empowering, amazing, freeing experiences of my life. And it's like, there never was division. We were taught there is division. There was no division. There isn't any division except the division we fucking create. And we can see all kinds of that throughout the world in every little way. It's like we created the fuckery. We fucked ourselves over. We created the division and then acted like there was an enemy who wasn't us. It's like we divided against ourselves. How do you divide? How do you divide zero? How do you divide against zero? How do you divide against yourself? Well, that's what happens. That's what seems has happened in our existence. So yeah, I said, I wrote down, we made it all up. This whole story. And I said, why? Why did we make it all up? And I said, because it's a cool fucking story. The story of life. The good, the evil, the heroism, the challenge, the we win in the end. Like, again, this is just a state of mind I was in. Yeah. Because nothing. I couldn't take anything seriously in that moment about anything with life. Why'd we make it all up? It's like because it's like we were cosmically bored, and it's a cool fucking story. Like, not that everything bad that happens is cool, but this whole narrative of existence, it was a cool fucking thing to do. That was my understanding. That was what I was hearing or seeing. There's nothing worse than an enemy with a boring description. I was thinking that after seeing the devil or myself, or also, the other side of God. And I thought, man, this thing is so, like I said, majestic, and the details and infinite details. I mean, just incredible. And I thought, how boring would it be if there were none of those details? Like, what if it's like, oh, what color is the devil? He's red. Well, red, okay. But you don't describe anything. You're seeing details about how incredible this thing looks. So I just put, there's nothing worse than an enemy with a boring description.
Was it all color, like all the colors?
It was like, when I think back on like what I was seeing in my mind when looking at the devil, which was me, but was also God. There's a trinity for you. Like I said, it's like he was made of diamonds, the whole body. Then had other things like clothes and clothing pieces that were made of other like emeralds or super fine, amazingly colored linens, or it was like the most royal, majestic things that could ever exist that like this thing was wearing. And it was beautiful. It was just beyond, like, if you see like your favorite dress at like the Louis Vuitton store, or whoever makes the, those, Versace, it would have been that times like a trillion. Like, as far as your wow, when you look at like what your favorite thing is that you're so amazed by, it's like, it's way beyond that level. Like, it's like that magnified millions of times over of, wow, I can't believe how beautiful that is. So this is what I was seeing. God watches the devil dance in the moonlight, and he's happy because it's him being what he is. This thing we call Satan, the devil, that we attribute this title to. All is perfect. But God's happy watching him dance in the moonlight, and he's happy because that's what he made the thing to do. And it's just doing what it does. And it's also it's a part of him. I also saw it, and I saw me. So, who the hell knows? Brian.
That whole thing is so interesting.
Yeah. I mean, Brian, you sound like you were tripping. Yeah. But I think about the narratives of God we have in our world through religions, and it's like, oh, it's so similar. They just have a different narrative. They decided to tell this one way instead of another. What if all those people who wrote these holy books, and I truly believe they were tripping out a lot of the same stuff. What if instead of division, everybody preached unity? We're all one. We're all one. Well, you can't take people over and control people if you do that. You have to be able to divide and scare people to control them. And that's our darker side, I think, is, again, that's whenever we divide against other people, we're dividing ourselves. We're dividing against ourselves. Again, it's the whole, your right arm can't hurt your left arm without hurting the body that itself is attached to. Let's see. Everything we think and believe creates 3D structures in our minds. So you're seeing cameras, computers, lighting. These are all 3D structures, Everything we think, our thoughts, everything we think and believe, follow me here, creates 3D structures in our minds. So it's like our thoughts create what my understanding was mental 3D structures. Like we think something and we can see it in our mind. The thought, it starts with a thought, and then we can visualize. We can visualize that thing. So it is a 3D structure. It's in our mind. It's like, oh, I want to be in Florida at the beach. Well, and I can see palm trees. I can smell the salt water. I can feel the sand. I just created an experience in my mind with thought. I can, in 3D, I can picture that. So everything we think and believe creates 3D structures in our minds, but they all got flattened. Every 3D structure, everything in existence, every mental thing, mental pictures that are 3D in our minds when we visualize something, on the mushrooms, everything got flattened. It went from a bunch of, think of like a skyline of like skyscrapers and all that. Well, imagine all those just getting flattened into one thread of yarn that's flat. All of existence in 3D got flattened into a one-dimensional thing. The lowest common factor of everything that is. All these big and different things, they became just one flat, consistent thing. Everything, all that was different, all just became one thing. Everything that's separate all became the one thing. Everything becomes one thing. And so there was no separation of all these different distinct things. That camera, this microphone, that laptop. It was like everything got smashed down into, there's a piece of cat hair right here on my shirt. Well, if that cat hair was stretched out in a one little flat line, it's like everything became that flat one thing. Even though they were so different and distinct, now they're just one thing. I put, this is our real, unchanging spirituality. But we created religion, and it's just a caricature of the real thing. So a caricature, is something that looks like something, but it's distorted. It's a distorted version of the real thing. If we had a caricature drawn of Jamie, it would look like her. We'd know it's her. But it would have, like an extra big nose, or extra giant big eyes that are out of proportion, or maybe one eye is big and out of proportion, and the other is regular. And maybe when if she's smiling, her teeth would be huge, or her lips would be accentuated and magnified and out of proportion to the picture. So we could tell it's her, but it would be a distorted version of her because she doesn't actually look like that. Well, spiritually speaking, what I was realizing or feeling was that we created religion as a way to try to make sense of things, and it's just a caricature. It's a distortion of our real true spirituality. And then we create rules and titles and hierarchies and structures, and then we divide against ourselves. We go to war against ourselves and each other, which is really just ourselves. Yeah. It's like, yeah, I've had that thought before. I really think I personally think it's true. I think religion is a caricature of the real thing. It's a distortion of our true spirituality. I think it's a place where people's egos have infected their true spirituality, and then that has produced a caricature, a distortion of our real spirituality, and we just call that distortion religion. But so many people have never known anything different. They think that's all there is, or that's the real thing. It's not. In my experience, it's not. And it doesn't matter if someone disagrees. It truly doesn't matter if someone disagrees with this. It doesn't matter. It literally, like I said before, it's like I'm not trying to prove anyone wrong. I don't need to. It doesn't matter if someone disagrees. They bought the lie. And ultimate truth does not change. Why would we have to argue over it? Ultimate truth isn't going to change. So what are we defending? Yeah, and there are a lot of lies in the world. And who knows? People say, well, Brian, you're deceived. You believe in the lie. Okay. Maybe just as much as you are. Maybe it's just a different one. Who knows? But I'm open-minded to the fact of maybe I'm not. I don't think I've understood, and it's only in this closed-off little coffee can. All the truth is only in the coffee can. It's like, no, there's an outside the coffee can space too. Even if you don't want to look at it, it is out there. So you have not had a real spiritual experience if you haven't had psychedelics. That's my personal belief. People can argue that. They can say, well, I had emotions in church. Fine. I know at this point there are manufactured spiritual experiences that churches do using music and emotion. If you just look at how the structure of let's say in particular, well, any church service really, but especially like American evangelical church services, there's a reason they start with fast, fun music. They do a few of those songs, then they go real deep and low, maybe get you emotional. Then they have a message that they try to, relate to you deeply on. And then so often they'll end with or close to the end, a very sad, depressing, emotional song about, trying to get you to a point where like you'll come down to the altar and give up. Well, people so often, I think, and I've done it too, I think they mistake an emotional experience for a spiritual one. Just because you're feeling emotional, true emotion, you're feeling that. Well, you're also being played, and very much so with music, which we could tie that back into the devil too, the angel of music or whatever. Who knows? But music is very much used, at least in the churches I came from, to influence people emotionally to a decision. I know at this point in my life, for me, those emotional moments in any church service I ever had, those were not spiritual experiences. They were what I was told are spiritual experiences. And they very much felt like something transcendent because it was so emotionally driven. The problem is, back then, I didn't know what a true spiritual experience felt like until I'd had one outside church with the plant medicines that God put in this earth for us. Now I look back and it's like that church service structure and people getting emotional. And it only happened a couple times in my life because it never felt real, but I didn't know of anything else. I can see now how that's manufactured. And a lot of people who are in ministry, they're just going along. This is how you're taught to do services. A lot of them aren't doing it to try to manipulate people. They're doing it the way they were taught to, because the system, the higher system above them, knows this is what works on people because they've been doing it for centuries. So this doesn't mean every pastor out there is trying to like manipulate people emotionally. It's not what I'm saying. They're definitely out there. There are a lot of them, but that's not every single one of them. But there is a manufactured spiritual experience, especially here in America, that we have in churches. And it's a caricature of the real thing. I didn't have to do anything on this stuff. I just was. I didn't have to be the right thing, say the right thing, be good enough, make these right decisions, pray this telepathic prayer that, as long as I say the words right, sinner's prayer, which isn't even in the Bible, in order to be in good standing with God. It's like I just was. I just existed and it was okay, and there never was anything wrong. And on such a deeply spiritual level that to think for me to walk into a church and think I can have a real spiritual experience is almost comical to me at this point. It's like, oh, I know what that is. I've spent 30 some years in it, 36, 37 years in that stuff. And it's like, that stuff's on like level 2. Spiritually, I've been deeper down to like level 9. It's like, hey, I have a PhD, but let's go hang out in kindergarten. Like, well, I'm not really interested in that. Some people need that. Some people are in kindergarten. And that's nothing against them. I'm not condescending, but it's like, that doesn't interest me anymore because it's too shallow. It's way too shallow. I'm not looking to go ankle deep in the surf zone. I've walked on the ocean floor. Walking in the surf zone doesn't do it for me. And sometimes the other people walking in the surf zone who have not been to the ocean floor, they'll try to convince you there is no ocean floor. And you say, well, no, I've walked on it many times. It's there, but they've been taught it isn't there. So they want to fight you and argue with you. And then there's been scriptures that have been written and handed to them to use against you that they think sound intelligent, but that's because they don't know any better. And then they can't even explain why they're saying what they say or why they believe it to begin with or how to defend it. It's just they're handed this prepackaged rhetoric and these narratives to defend with. But it's like you're talking to somebody, you're telling somebody there is no ocean floor to walk on who's walked on the ocean floor many times. But you've only walked in the surf zone ankle deep. It's like so many people aren't even qualified to tell other people well, you can't go there, or that can't be spiritual, or that's not God. They don't know enough to, it's like the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's like, which is basically when a person is too dumb to know how dumb they are because they lack so much knowledge, they don't realize how much they don't know. Because they know so little, they don't realize how little they know. Like genuine, it's like genuine, respectful ignorance. Like you truly, genuinely don't know something. So that's sort of my perspective on that. Let's see here, looking through these notes. Yeah, well, that was, I guess, my way of saying, in my experience, I don't think anyone's had a real spiritual experience if they've not had a psychedelic experience. And anyone who disagrees with that, you can disagree. But I challenge you to have one of these plant medicine experiences from these plants that God put in the earth. We didn't make it, God did. And after that experience, tell me if you disagree with me still. I'm not trying to be right. I don't want you to go, man, you totally got me. You were so right. And I'm like, yep, see, told you. It's not an I told you so thing. It's the whole, I know you're going to look at me and go, oh my God, I didn't know. And I'm like, I know, neither did I, but you get it now, right? Like, we don't know how to describe this. It's ineffable. There are no words for it, but you kind of get it now. And they're just like, I didn't see it before, but I couldn't see it before I saw it. And I remember being there. We've all been there. The three of us at least. And so that's why I try to have some grace for the ignorance. It's like, well, I used to be too. But I saw layers of consciousness and I transcended them and we created them. So here's what I mean. It was almost like in a video game, like an old video game, where it's like maybe like a purple hue on the screen. Think like Atari kind of stuff. And there's like lines and grids. And it's like, have like a purple hue. It's like lines and grids of like square shapes, right? Like just big squares. Well, it was like with our thoughts, it seemed like we were creating borders in our minds, and in each of these borders were creating like these squares and structures that were making up our thoughts that make up existence. Well, there was like different levels. Like it's like it just kept creating like these lines and these different levels, and they made up these things that were different levels of consciousness that are life. And so, and I saw myself, this is a level of consciousness. On the mushrooms, that was a different level of, a few different levels of consciousness, I think. And I recognized that, oh, it's these structures in our minds that create reality. What we see, what we think, it creates reality. It's like the one mind is us. It's in us. And when we think, we create. And there are also different levels of consciousness. And I saw myself sort of going visually in my mind. I realized that I had been going in and out and through just kind of different levels of consciousness that I saw were being created by our thoughts. Like before consciousness, it seems like maybe our thoughts created these structures and then we lived in them and became conscious because that's what that level of it was made to do. Maybe it was like a higher part of ourselves that created that before we knew this level and type of present consciousness, if that makes any sense. It's kind of like we created all of this. Now people say, well, God created. Yeah, like same thing. Not in a blasphemous way. But like we're him, he's us, we're the same energy. The energy that God is, we are, because we're part of him. Like that kind of oneness. Not blasphemous or us against God, but that total oneness of everything. Yeah. And so that's what it seemed like. So everything we let's see. Oh, did I? I saw layers of consciousness and transcended them, and we created them. Like before we were consciously, like it was almost like you and I sitting here talking as human beings in this 3D present consciousness right now. It's like this experience is a manufactured experience that we're experiencing as a result of what the energy we are created, and now we're us living, or we're us living ourselves because we created it this way. I had this very strong sense that we did all this. We created this. We created the things that created this experience. People say, well, God did. Yeah, exactly. And we're a part of that. We're all a part of it. It's like there's one mind and it's all of us. I'm just telling you what it seemed like. And who the hell knows? But that's what it felt and seemed like. And it actually makes a lot of sense to me. Makes a lot more sense than a lot of the shit I was taught in church growing up. I mean, I could go on and on about that, but like this stuff I never thought to think before. But now that I did think it and see it, it actually makes more sense to me than things I was taught. But again, who knows? It's not New Age. It's older than you know how to think. It's not ancient. Like whatever is what's a word that would be like describe ancient times like 10 million? Like what's ancient of ancient? Like we think ancient, we go, oh, that's like 1,000 years old. It's 5,000 years old. Well, what would something be that's like 500 trillion years old? Like ancient, like beyond ancient. Like, yeah, like infinitely ancient. Yeah. Like that's how old a lot of this felt. Like if you ever went to like some ancient ruins somewhere in the world, you go, wow, that stone or that temple right there is 5,000 years old or 2,000 years old. It's like that's like infant. That's like, oh, you had a baby last week, you know, as opposed to a body or skeleton you found that, you know, is dated back, 60,000 years. It's that kind of contrast in age of realization of, wow, newborn and a 60,000-year-old body or a 60 million-year-old body. Who knows? It was that kind of old. This was an interesting thought that came to me. I put, you are the dancer and the dance floor. Like, you're the one dancing, but you're also the dance floor. You're the thing, I guess, being done and the platform upon which it is being done. It's like you're separate, but you're the same. It's like two, you could say like two manifestations of the same thing. There's the one, A turned into, the letter A maybe divided into two and became B and C, but they're both A, that kind of thing. It's all you. It's all you, and it's perfect. Everything is already perfect. That's what I kept getting. Like it's all already perfect. It's the things you think are trivial. It's you're not like, for me, I'm saying you, I mean me, like it's telling me like you're not getting it. Everything is already perfect, and nothing can change that. Everything just is what it is. So that ended around 12:30 at night. Though the next morning, I could still very much feel the effects of the mushrooms around breakfast time even. And that second journey with the mushrooms that night with the 9 grams lasted about 6.5 hours, I think.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Tell me about the tuning forks, because I'm very intrigued.
Oh, yeah.
About what that made you feel with the vibration, because we're vibrational beings and they use the tuning forks. Yeah. What did that do to your thought process?
Yeah, she brought out tuning forks it was at the beginning of the mushroom journey.
And the so,
and the what are they called? The bowls? Yeah. Yeah, the sound bowls or whatever. You hit them, you run the gong thing around the inside and it makes the noise. Yeah, the mushrooms hadn't kicked in yet, but it was kind of cool. They're doing that noise. The two of them, they were sitting around me. I'm laying in the grass with a pillow. They're both sitting near me, doing the sound bowl things. And she like put the tuning fork on me, and she'd ding the tuning fork and then put it on me or whatever, like right here on my forehead or on my chest, um, and different strengths of hitting it. I didn't notice anything psychedelically with it because it really hadn't. The mushrooms hadn't kicked in yet. The ayahuasca was still wearing off, but it was still there. But it did feel really cool. The vibration of it, like I could feel it. Like when she put it on my forehead, I could feel it like reverberate all throughout my head. It felt pretty good actually. And when she put it on my, she'd ding it really hard, the tuning fork, and then put it on my chest. I could feel it kind of like ripple through my body, kind of. So if she would have done that 3 hours later, while I was in the middle of this mushroom journey, I think it would have been an even wilder, great experience. But I was so, and we talked about like, yeah, let's do that here in a couple hours once it really kicks in. But I know she probably saw me and went, he's so somewhere else right now. I'm not interfering with him. He's having his journey. He's having his experience. But I wish I would have thought to go, hey, do you still have those tuning forks? But I think it would have been a cool journey because, I mean, there are things we know about sound and wavelengths and sound waves and vibrations and energy.
Cymatics and the patterns.
Yeah.
That they make.
Yeah, so
what are they doing to you? What pattern are they?
Yeah, that was her thing of like, she started learning about sound healing and going, I wonder if we could integrate this with, psychedelic experience. Because, they're different, but would they influence each other, and what would that be like, and would it be, so that was kind of the curiosity of, hey, let's kind of try this. And so I didn't have it in the midst of the strength of in the middle of the journey. I think if I would have, I probably would have had a stronger experience with it. But it was cool either way. So yeah, this was July 20th, 2024. My second big ayahuasca experience. I drank ayahuasca, I think, 4 or 5 times now. And I had a really strong 9-gram mushroom journey. And both incredible. Who knows about any of it? What is what? It's all great food for thought. I have a better understanding of things now, but I still, even like we said before, even though I understand more, I realize how little I understand. So it's like the more you learn and know, the more you realize you don't know. I always say it's kind of like the letter V. It's like you know what you do, but the more you go up and you ascend within the V, it's like you don't come to a point of total knowledge one day. Actually, the V opens up and out. The more you learn, it's like the wider it gets, not the more narrow and more understanding. It actually expands the more you know. The more what you don't know expands, and it seems like it never ends. And so, but yeah, this was my experience. Some will love it, some will hate it, and I don't give a fuck. That was my experience. It was beautiful, and I can't wait to have it again.